Sufism is often described in different ways. Some call it a mystical tradition, others see it as a spiritual practice, but at its core, it is an aspect of Islam, not a separate branch like Sunni or Shia. It represents a deep inner dimension of faith, focusing on spiritual growth, ethical refinement, and a closer connection with God. One theory about the origin of the term Sufi is that it originates from the Arabic word suf, meaning wool, referring to the simple woolen garments worn by early Sufis as a sign of humility and detachment from worldly desires. In any case, the roots of Sufism can be traced back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, with significant development in the 8th century. It is deeply based on the teachings of the Quran and Hadith, drawing inspiration from verses and sayings that emphasize love, devotion, and self-purification. Sufis were devout Muslims who followed the fundamental pillars of Islam, including prayer, fasting, and charity. But they sought to go beyond basic religious obligations. Their dedication led them to fast more frequently, sometimes daily, and to adapt an austere lifestyle by consuming minimal food and owning few possessions. Ethics played a central role in their practice. They strove for inner purity, aiming to cleanse the soul of negative traits like arrogance and greed. Despite their various methods of devotion and self-discipline, the ultimate goal was spiritual intimacy with God. Over time, Sufi orders called tariqas emerged, providing structured paths for seekers to follow on their journey toward God. Through philosophy, poetry, and music, Sufism has profoundly shaped Islamic thought and spirituality, offering a way for believers to experience faith on a deeply personal level. Sufi orders, known as tariqas, serve as organized spiritual paths that guide seekers toward inner purification and closeness to God. These traditions developed over centuries, each offering distinct approaches to Sufi practice. Some of the most influential orders include the Chishti order, which originated in Central Asia and later flourished in India. This order emphasizes love, tolerance, and devotion. It incorporates music, sama, into its spiritual gatherings, believing it enhances the soul's journey toward divine connection. The Qadiri order was established by Abdul Qadir Jilani. This is one of the oldest and most widely followed Sufi orders. It emphasizes strict adherence to Islamic teachings, combined with spiritual practices such as dhikr, remembrance of God, and self-discipline to attain closeness to the divine. The Naqshbandi order is distinct from many other Sufi orders. The Naqshbandi path places great importance on silent dhikr, inner reflection, and structured discipline. Originally founded in Bukhara, it became influential in Central Asia, Turkey, and South Asia, teaching that spiritual awareness should coexist with engagement in daily life. Sufi sheikhs were revered spiritual guides who played a crucial role in mentoring and teaching students on the path of Islamic mysticism. These masters possessed profound wisdom and deep spiritual insight, helping their disciples cultivate inner purity and strengthen their connection with God. Their students, known as murids, entered a teacher-disciple relationship, seeking guidance on refining their character, detaching from material distractions, and progressing toward divine closeness. Lessons were passed down through personal mentorship, poetry, music, and structured rituals within Sufi orders, tariqas. These orders established a framework for spiritual discipline and growth. The bond between a sheikh and murid was built on trust and devotion, with disciples engaging in rigorous spiritual exercises such as meditation, fasting, and dhikr, remembrance of God. Through these practices, they aimed to transform their hearts and attain a profound sense of divine love. In Sufism, ma'rifah is a unique kind of knowledge that comes from direct spiritual experience rather than intellectual reasoning. Unlike philosophy, which relies on logic and analysis, Marifa is a deep mystical awareness of God, a truth that is felt and lived rather than simply understood through study. Sufis believe that Marifa cannot be fully grasped through words or formal education. Instead, it is attained through devotion, inner purification, and spiritual practices such as dhikr, meditation, and self-discipline. By focusing on the heart rather than the mind, seekers gain insight into the divine reality, moving beyond theoretical knowledge into a profound personal connection with God. This distinction between ilm, scholarly knowledge, and ma'rifah is central to Sufi thought. While ilm is acquired through learning and study, ma'rifah is revealed through spiritual transformation. It represents an intuitive understanding of divine presence, one that transcends logic and must be experienced directly. In Sufism, self-purification is a key spiritual practice known as jahad al-nafs, or the struggle against the ego. This inner battle focuses on overcoming negative qualities like pride, greed, and selfishness, leading to spiritual growth and a deeper relationship with God. By refining the soul, a person moves toward a state of humility, sincerity, and closeness to the divine. Another central principle of Sufism is divine love. Sufis cultivate a deep devotion to God through constant remembrance, dhikr, repeating prayers and sacred phrases to maintain spiritual awareness. Dhikr serves as a means to cleanse the heart and strengthen one's connection to the divine. At the highest level of spiritual progress, Sufis seek annihilation of the self, fana, where the ego dissolves completely into divine reality. This does not imply physical disappearance, but rather a transformation in consciousness, seeing only God as the ultimate truth and transcending personal identity. In this state, God is recognized as ever-present, the only true reality in existence. Sufis emphasize that God is here and now, not a distant presence, but the eternal and absolute reality experienced in every moment. Through devotion, self-discipline, and inner purification, they strive to fully realize and embody this divine truth. Sufism had a significant practical dimension that influenced various forms of artistic and cultural expression. Many Sufis conveyed their spiritual insights through poetry, using rich symbolism to express divine love and mystical experiences. Renowned poets like Rumi and Hafiz incorporated metaphors such as wine and flute and the beloved, representing spiritual intoxication and the soul's longing for union with God. Beyond reciting the Quran and engaging in dhikr, remembrance of God, Sufis also integrated music, rhythmic movements, and dance into their spiritual practices. Sama is an essential practice in Sufism that involves spiritual listening and meditative movement, often accompanied by music and poetry. It serves as a means of deep contemplation and connection with the divine, allowing participants to transcend worldly distractions and immerse themselves in an experience of divine love. One of the most well-known forms of Sama is the whirling dance performed by the Mevlevi order, often called the whirling dervishes. This ritual represents the soul's journey towards spiritual elevation, where continuous spinning symbolizes shedding the ego and moving closer to God. It also in some way matches the movement of the cosmos, where the individual represents a moving part of the greater cosmic system, God being the center. Sama is more than just music and movement. It is a sacred spiritual exercise that aids in self-purification and awareness of divine presence. Sufis believe that listening to devotional poetry and melodies can awaken the heart, deepening their sense of unity with God. Pilgrimage to the shrines of great Sufi masters is also an important tradition. Visiting these sacred sites was believed to bring barakah, blessing, offering spiritual inspiration and guidance to devotees seeking a deeper connection with God. Sufism has been shaped by many great mystical thinkers. each contributing profound spiritual insights that continue to inspire seekers today. One of the most influential figures was Ibn Arabi, who developed the concept of Wahdatul Wujud, the unity of existence. He taught that all creation is a reflection of God's essence and that everything ultimately leads back to divine reality. His philosophical approach emphasized that God's presence permeates every aspect of existence. Rumi, also known as Maulana, expressed Sufi wisdom through poetry filled with themes of love, divine longing, and spiritual transformation. His writings, particularly in the Masnavi, convey the journey of the soul toward union with God, often using metaphors of music, dance, and nature to illustrate mystical experiences. Al-Bastami, a towering figure in early Sufism, is famous for his ecstatic statements, including Subhani, meaning glory be to me, which symbolized his complete absorption in divine reality. His expressions were not meant as claims of divinity, but rather as a reflection of the mystical state where selfhood disappears, leaving only God. Al-Ghazali played a key role in bridging Islamic theology with Sufi mysticism. His works emphasized the importance of spiritual purification and personal experience over mere intellectual study, making Sufism more accessible within the broader Islamic tradition. Two more fascinating figures in Sufism are Mansur al-Hallaj and Faribuddin Attar, both of whom left a lasting impact on Islamic mysticism. Al-Hallaj is known for his deep spiritual devotion and his famous declaration, Ana al-Haq, which means I am the truth. This statement, interpreted by many as an expression of divine unity, was controversial and led to his execution. For Al-Hallaj, the realization of God's presence was so intense that personal identity dissolved entirely, leaving only divine reality. His legacy continues to inspire seekers who strive for the highest level of mystical union with God. Attar was a celebrated Persian poet and Sufi thinker. His masterpiece Mantiq or the Conference of the Birds is an allegorical tale describing the journey of birds seeking their divine king, symbolizing the soul's quest for spiritual awakening. Through poetry and storytelling, Attar illustrated the struggles, revelations, and transformation that one must undergo in pursuit of God. His works heavily influenced later Sufi poets, including Rumi, who admired his vision. All of these figures contributed profoundly to Sufi thought and practice. Their insights remain deeply relevant to spiritual seekers today. Sufism remains widespread today, with many adherents to the various Sufi orders throughout the Islamic world. What do you think about Sufism? Is it an integral part of Islam, as the Sufis claim, or is it a heretical deviation from Islam inspired by foreign influences, such as Zoroastrianism and Hinduism? Let me know your opinions in the comments.